Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2021 and welcome to your qualifying report for the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. It's been a while, it's been a short while since we've done one of these. I think Styria was the last time we did a qualifying review, but an action-packed session today with a big crash halfway through in Q2, a bit of dramas and team tactics at the very end of the session should give us plenty to talk about. So as always, if you are new, feel free to subscribe. Spoiler warning for today's session, but without further ado, here is your results. And it's pole position 101 for Lewis Hamilton and a Mercedes 1-2 for the first time since Portugal and only the second of this season so far. Not a bad statistic unless you are Red Bull. Third today for Max Verstappen, fourth for Sergio Perez. Not what they were hoping for, but on a different tyre strategy. The two Mercedes will start on the mediums, the two Red Bulls will start on the soft. They'll be hoping early doors to make an advantage over the two Mercs in front. Gasly back on form today, another monster lap puts the Frenchman in P5 only behind the two Mercs and the two Red Bulls. A great drive from Gasly, but take a look at those times. Just behind Perez, just in front of Lando Norris and just in front of Charles Leclerc. Fourth down to seventh, just over half a tenth between all of them. So close. Norris didn't think McLaren quite had the pace today. He's sixth. Leclerc in seventh probably will be a little bit disappointed, but with Ocon in eighth and Alonso in ninth, it's the first time in a very long time that both Alpines have made it into Q3 and Sebastian Vettel rounded out your top 10. Starting from 11th will be Daniel Ricciardo. It's not the greatest result and 77 thousandths of Q3. He'll be a little bit frustrated, but as I always say, starting on those different compound of tyres, which I am sure all of these guys starting out the top 10 will do, I think he's got a chance of some good points tomorrow. A lot of people talking on Friday that if you're going to finish 9th or 10th, just start 11th or 12th. And I think a similar story with Lance Stroll. Ricciardo and Lance both have cars capable of scoring points, and that bit of strategy, if they can keep their nose clean, should be great for them in the race tomorrow. Raikkonen was 13th, Giovinazzi was 14th, and Carlos Sainz, one of the big stories of the day, a huge crash halfway through Q2, right through the final corner, losing the rear end, careering into the barriers and unable to return to the pit lane. Yuki Tsunoda out again in Q1, a difficult day for the Japanese driver. He was in front of the two Williams. Russell finally out in Q1 for the first time this season. Mazepin was 19th, beating his teammate Schumacher for one of the few times this season, as Schumacher did not set a time as he crashed very heavily at the end of practice 3. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your order. A pretty straightforward grid. Mostly 2x2, we got the two Mercs, the two Red Bulls, Alpines making it into Q3, McLaren and Ferrari, even Aston Martin in the mix. And then further back, you've got your two Alphas, your two Williams and your two Haas cars. So in terms of race pace tomorrow, it's going to be really interesting to see which cars can convert their qualifying pace and which are going to be struggling in those slightly hotter conditions. But I said it on Friday, we keep our fingers crossed because rain on the horizon and could really spice up this Grand Prix. But there is plenty to talk about today, and starting off with Mercedes, they will be delighted with only their second 1-2 of the season. It's been a difficult run of Grand Prix, and even Silverstone, the race that we are not allowed to talk about, even Silverstone, I don't think they were too happy that Red Bull, still on paper, had the quickest car. Now, in Hungary, it seems for the first time, I would argue, since that race in Portugal, maybe Spain, it's the first time really Mercedes have had the best car and comfortably took pole position today. 4/10 Hamilton was in front of Verstappen. And though not many people were improving on their final runs, people will point out the gamesmanship, the tactics, what was going on with that backing up. And we saw it all day long from every single driver, every single car. Valtteri was holding up Lewis. Lewis was holding up Max. Max was holding up Perez. The chain reaction caused Checo to not get through and set his lap, and some people, Checo rightly so, are not very happy with Mercedes, saying it was the tactics on purpose. Was it? Wasn't it? We don't know. Probably there was something going on in the background saying, guys, if you can make it work, give it a go. It's cheeky. It's not against the rules unless you're dramatically slowing down. It's messy. And this is something where the FIA, if they want to set a precedent, they can do. But if they're going to do that, they're going to be penalising an awful lot of drivers. It's something that's gotten out of hand for many years now. I don't think anything will change heading into the race tomorrow. For Valtteri Bottas, it seemed all weekend long he was right on the pace with Lewis Hamilton, but when it got to Q3, when push came to shove, was just unable to do so. For Red Bull, third and fourth, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. They will take it, knowing they've not got the quickest car this weekend, and Checo's right there with Max. The gap is big. It's not the smallest gap between the two of them. 0.6 needs to be improved upon, but that's where Perez needs to be. He needs to be that one position behind Max, being that rear gunner, giving Red Bull different options on strategy. He's going to be there tomorrow, and in all fairness to Checo, he didn't get that final run. He thinks he could have gone quicker, and I will give him that benefit of the doubt. For Max, he knows points are on Sunday. We've seen that on multiple occasions this year, and I think for him, if he can get to that summer break leading in the driver's standings, that will give him more confidence than just getting a meaningless pole position today. So they will know focus is on tomorrow. It's not the end of the world from Red Bull today. For Gasly, P5, that is pretty epic from the Frenchman. It's another great result in qualifying, and over the last couple of weekends, the Frenchman's got under the radar, but at Silverstone, that late heartbreak with the puncher put pay to points, and I think he will be now focusing on making sure he's in that top 10 tomorrow, but also heading into the summer break. And hey, if there is any kind of incident, if he can steal a podium tomorrow, if he can even stay in front of the McLarens and the Ferraris, that is a job very well done for Pierre Gasly. For Yuki Tsunoda, bless him, it's not quite the day he would have wanted, and when he sees his teammate was 5th, he will know there is plenty of room for improvement. I don't quite know what happened at the end of Q1. He didn't set a final lap, so whether there was some kind of mistake, I'm not too sure just yet, but a 10th off getting through into Q2 behind both Alfa Romeo cars, it's not fantastic. And again, there's work to do for Yuki, who's now gone out in Q1 in the last 2 weekends of the season so far. It's been a strange season for him, and actually crashing out at the end of practice 1 did not do him any favours. Lost plenty of running in practice 2, the most crucial of the practice sessions. But I think it's a big day for him tomorrow to get his own confidence up heading into the summer. Lando Norris 6th, I actually didn't expect that. I actually think that's a really good result from Lando, because that Ferrari, many people, including myself, thought would be fighting for pole, but definitely would be at the front of that midfield. AlphaTauri looks strong all weekend, and the Alpine cars also looks very strong. And so for Lando, right in the heart of the points, again in the top 10, I think's an awesome little drive. And for Danny Rick, I mentioned it earlier, so I won't bore you again. 11th, he would have loved, in a way, to get into Q3, but I think secretly, him and Lance Stroll both know 11th and 12th, that's really not a bad place to be. Yes, they've got to make overtakes, and yes, Ricciardo will look at the time difference between himself and Norris at the end of Q2, when Norris moved up to 2nd place. That was a heck of a lap, but I think overall, going into tomorrow, that's not a bad place to be at all. So for McLaren on a weekend, they weren't too optimistic. I think this is a really good starting point. Ferrari, I think, will be disappointed. 7th for Leclerc. They would have hoped for more. They will see the gap between himself, Norris, Gasly and Perez less than a 10th between 4th and 7th. That is super close. That is a slight little correction. That is just the engine slightly not working as it should be. A gear change, half a millisecond too late, will make that time up. So he can't beat himself up on that. But nevertheless, I think they were hoping for better than 7th. And for Carlos Sainz, he'll be kicking himself, because 15th is not where that Ferrari should be starting tomorrow. I don't believe there is any kind of penalty coming his way. It looked like it was just front suspension that was damaged, and it's a pretty straightforward recovery on that one. He's got work to do though, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing him with the two Alphas, how he's going to be fighting with his old car and Daniel Ricciardo and Lance Stroll as well. Sainz, I think, has got a quicker car than most of those guys around him, but what he's got to do is keep his nose clean. I know for Fantasy Team, Sainz was my turbo driver, so that crash meant even more to me today. Not a happy bunny myself or Carlos Sainz. It's two cars in the top 10 for Alpine for the first time in a very, very long time. 8th and 9th is a solid job. I think if you look at their results throughout practice this weekend, they may have wanted a little bit more, but both drivers' lap times almost identical. 0.2 off Leclerc in 7th, about half a tenth in front of Vettel. A good job, a good day's work, but I do think they'll be under threat from your Ricciardos, your Strolls, your Sainzes, maybe even Yuki Tsunoda, depending on which Yuki Tsunoda wants to show up tomorrow. So I think Alonso and Ocon will be slightly nervous, but judging on their pace from Friday practice, I think they'll be quietly confident they can hold on for points. Aston Martin, it's a similar kind of story. Seb Vettel, Q3, fantastic, but 10th place, he's going to be under threat. He's going to be under threat, and can he hold on in that top 10? Can he keep pace with the two Alpines? I think that's going to be the real focus for him. But with Lance Stroll in 12th, I wonder if their focus as a team will be collective. I think it will be collective on scoring the most points possible, and it wouldn't surprise me if they sacrifice Seb's race just a little bit to help Lance, but it also could be vice versa depending on safety cars and how the race pans out. That's the luxury of Aston that Alpine do not have for the race tomorrow. 13th and 14th for Alfa Romeo, it's a good job. Raikkonen not only making it through to Q2 for the first time in a long time, but also beating his teammate is the kind of result he was looking for. And Giovinazzi, who bless him, has had so many issues this weekend, was barely able to set a lap in practice 1 and 2, then in practice 3 had an unsafe release in the pit lane and contact with Stroll, then later on was dawdling on the racing line. Gasly almost went into the back of him. That investigation is still going on, so maybe hit with a penalty, but overall for Alfa, that's not a bad job. For Williams, Russell goes out in Q1 for the first time this season. Latifi unable to beat his teammate. It's a track Williams went well at last season, but I think judging at the fact they went well at Silverstone, Austria and Imola, I don't think this is the kind of philosophy of circuit they're really expecting a great result, and so I don't think it's too surprising to see them 17th and 18th. Mazepin beat his teammate by default as Schumacher had a huge crash at the end of practice 3, unable to take part in qualifying, and as a result the two Haas cars round out your field. But before we go, we've got a few more things to address, starting off with driver of the day. I don't think there's too many candidates, but this man, Pierre Gasly, for me, was the standout of the bunch. 5th place, a 1:16.4, only a second off pole position, isn't too bad, but 11 places in front of teammate Yuki Tsunoda, in front of both McLarens, both Ferraris, Alpines. I think this was a really solid job. So Gasly, not for the first time this season, my driver of the day. And perhaps more interestingly, ones to watch for the race tomorrow. Lance Stroll and Danny Rick obviously getting in with that lovely alternate strategy I love to cause drama with. Carlos Sainz, that big crash, almost got my racing reviews ones to watch. However, I'm giving it to Yuki Tsunoda. As we know, is one of the fieriest drivers on the grid this season, perhaps even more fiery than Chile himself, car number 55. But I think this is a big race for Yuki. Going into that summer break, I've mentioned it several times today, I think that bit of confidence, that big result before 4 weekends off, is a big thing to tee up the rest of your season, and it's been very up and down for Yuki so far. He's not scored consecutive points finishes this year. He's got a chance to do it tomorrow. If he wants to do it tomorrow, he's got work to do. But on a venue he did pretty well at in F2 and F3, a circuit he's got history with, I think he could have a good race tomorrow. Either way, he's going to cause dramas, he's going to cause fireworks, and that's exactly what we want to see. But I will leave you there. That is it from me for your Hungarian Grand Prix qualifying report. I'll be back tomorrow evening for your race review. Fingers crossed we get a bit of rain, a bit of drama in the Grand Prix. This one normally goes one of two ways. It can be a bit of a stinker, but we've also had some belters in the past before. Thank you all very much for watching. If you are new, feel free to subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next one.